Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to virtual service for the Connecting Grounds. This is our winter season, and we are back virtual for this entire season until probably about Easter, so that we can use our building in a little bit different way and use our building to serve as a constant 7-day a week family shelter. And that was an easy decision to make, but it has definitely, I know, for a lot of our TCG family, just been a challenge to not be able to connect as much in person, to not be able to hug and do all the things that we normally do, to eat dinner together before service. And so I just want you all to know that we are thinking of you and that we miss you. But I'm glad that we're able to connect in this way. So we are going to be diving in to week 2 of Advent. So this is virtual Advent for us. Last week we talked about my favorite topic of all of Advent, my favorite topic to preach about, period, to write about, to talk about, and that is hope. I think hope is just such a beautiful concept. I think theologically, philosophically, practically, it's just such a catalytic concept that has the potential to provide strength and light in some of the hardest, darkest spaces. And so I felt like last week was a really good conversation, but I'm looking forward to this conversation as well. This week, we're talking about peace. We're talking about the Advent second week of peace. And you're going to kick us off with a song. And this is a song that we have traditionally used at TCG the last couple of years, every single week of Advent. Will you talk a little bit about this song, about what it means to you, about why these lyrics, why this concept is so important to you?
Yeah. I think even a little less about this song and just a lot of Christian worship songs in general. I told Christy this morning that I was trying to find a song that talks about peace. And I was fumbling. I was just like, oh my gosh, every song I'm pulling up has this underlying theme of just like immense amount of joy and radiating peace in all these spaces. And I think the reality is, like, while that can be spoken into from a place of like I'm hoping for this, or like I see this in the future, like I know that, like, with faith that like we're going to get through that kind of a thing, there's still a place of like the holidays are hard for so many people, like the winter is hard for so many people. And even with those places of moments of joy, moments of hope, moments of peace, I think there's still so much struggle that doesn't go away just because it's Christmas. And so I think there's a lot of songs we sing and a lot of traditional things we sing that like are beautiful, and a lot of times they have memories to them, and that's really important to honor those memories that bring us like it just feels like warm and fuzzy inside because we remember listening to it when our grandma played it, or we remember listening to it in the car when we looked at Christmas lights. I think sometimes it's important too to recognize that sometimes those lyrics are not, they don't feel relevant to us in the season of life we're in. And so we found this song last year. I don't remember which one of us came up with this song. But instead of like, oh come, all ye faithful, it's, oh, come all you unfaithful. And it's basically a song that just names the struggle and it names the humanity that's in people tied with that space. That's hope, that's peace, that's gratefulness, that's still this deep humility for what this season represents. And so it's just a really beautiful song. I know it's hard to hear the lyrics. I think one of my favorite verses is verse 2, and it says, "Oh, come barren and waiting ones, weary of praying, come see what your God has done." And I encourage you to look up this song in whatever capacity you have later and just let these words soak in, because I think a lot of times they're probably more relevant to sometimes those more hard emotions that this season can bring than a lot of what's played on the radio.
Yeah, I'm putting the link to the lyrics in the comments. But, I think the other thing too, Holly, that I just want to mention before you lead us in this meditation of music is, last week we talked about a lot of what we do at TCG is striving to be very aware of trauma and religious trauma, especially understanding that so many of our Christmas songs have lyrics about home. And when you don't have a home, that can be really hard. Lyrics about family, when maybe we're disconnected from family, that can be really hard. But I think what strikes me so much about this song and why we use it every single week of Christmas as kind of this opening meditation to our worship spaces is this idea that it is my deepest prayer pastorally and as a faith leader that no one ever feels like there is anything in them currently or in their past, no guilt, no shame, no doubt, no question, no anger, no emotion that can ever keep them from being welcomed in a space of faith, being welcomed at a table of community, being welcomed in a conversation, being welcomed in a holy space. And I think way too often, we elevate religion to a point where we make people feel excluded. And I think Christmas is this reminder, and this song is this reminder, and it should never, ever, ever just be contained to a holiday season, but it should be every day, all year long, all seasons, that no matter what you wrestle with, no matter how you feel, that you are always welcome. And God always stands waiting, willing, and wanting.
Oh, come, all you unfaithful, come, weak and unstable, come. No, you are not alone. Oh, come, barren and waiting ones, weary of praying, come, see what your God has done. Christ is born, Christ is born, Christ is born for you. Oh, come, bitter and broken, come, with fears unspoken, come, taste of his perfect love. Oh, come, guilty and hiding ones, there is no need to run. See what your God has done. Christ is born, Christ is born, Christ is born for you. He's the Lamb who was given
Now, Holly, that line that song sings again and again, that Christ was born for you, reminds me of this line that C.S. Lewis wrote, where he said, Christ loved you enough that he would have come even if you were the only one. And there's something so beautiful and so profound about that concept, but there's something really beautiful about embedding that in the context of Christmas and the nativity story. Because I think sometimes, when we think about Christmas, sometimes I think we think, that Christ came for all, and he did come for all. And all being incredibly inclusive as a concept, right? Like there was no sinner too bad. There was no lifestyle too off limits that Christ didn't come for that person. And so sometimes especially in that place of feeling like we are the unfaithful ones, feeling like we are the ones that are excluded, when all reality is that Christ loves us and sees us and came if only for us. And there's something so beautiful about that at Christmas. So let's talk about peace. Peace is a hard concept.
Did
you really just do that?
I did. I felt like we needed it.
Oh, I love you. So here's something that I found myself thinking about this week. I found myself thinking that peace does not exist without chaos. Peace does not exist without struggle. Peace does not exist without obstacles and conflict. Because without those things, right, peace doesn't become something that we experience, because it just would be, right? It would just be the calm and the security and the relief all the time. And I think there's something about this idea that for us to experience peace, we also have to coexist in a place that makes us notice when we are in a state of dysregulation, so that we can feel the difference in ourselves when we experience the regulation to our breathing, to our sense of safety, to our emotions, to our spirit, when we experience a degree of peace. Talk about that concept for a second. How does that hit you?
I mean, I think, not to be redundant, because I think I shared this very similarly last week, but I think peace is such a big, bold word, and it's something that I think we always want to be working towards or see in our lives or whatever that is. But like, we talk about this season, how this season really was that birth of peace, that with the birth of Jesus came like the hope of peace, came the potential for peace. And I feel like I see so often I like that you use the word chaos, because like in chaotic places, peace doesn't always have to be the ending of the chaos. Like peace is found so often, and that's just the faithfulness of God. It's found so often in those really teeny tiny moments that gives us just a glimmer. As a mom of toddlers, like it's those moments of like on those really hard days when my kids have really big emotions, and that comes out, and sometimes just like in their tears, or it comes out in their aggression, and they're just trying to learn how to communicate what they need. And sometimes we just have really hard nights, and like it comes in that moment, like, when they're falling asleep and we're snuggling, and there's that moment of just like, you can feel that peace of that, like, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this season. I don't always want to bring it back to shelter stuff, but I also feel like so many of you, are the sacrifice of this season that you are giving to not be in person is because of this shelter, and just to give you those beautiful connection points to just see the worth of that space. I think peace looks like these families that enter our building in chaotic situations, heartbreaking situations. I can't tell you the stories I've cried over personally, and just the injustice, or the moments of just like, I like hearing parents come in and be like, I don't know how we're going to get through this. I don't know how we're going to, what's next for us. But it's those moments of, dinners loud and chaotic, planes loud and chaotic, showers can be, they're trying to get ready for bed. And it's that moment when everyone falls asleep and the lights are out and the sound machine is going, and you're like, peace looks like a warm place to sleep tonight. It looks like that space that's safe. It looks like one single night of knowing we have a place to be, we have safety. And I think that those little glimmers of peace connect us so deeply to the heart of God, who cares so much to make sure that we have that space in that moment.
Yeah, and shelter's a fantastic example, but I think I would almost push back just a little bit and walk it back. Like, yes, the end of the night when the lights are off and it's quiet and everybody's sleeping, like, I think a lot of times we look at that and we go, okay, this is the moment of peace, right? Like, this is that place. But in reality, I think you and I see that even before that, right? I think it's the frantic phone call of, I don't know what to do. What am I going to do? And the moment that you say, we have a space for you, and the audible sound of peace that floods over that phone line when it's like, you do, like, there's like the ability to take a deep breath in the midst of chaos for the first time. That moment that you walk into a door, whether it's our shelter or any of our other crisis cold weather shelters or ongoing shelters, and it's that moment of like, everything may not be all right? You still may not have your ID. You may still not know where you're going to go tomorrow. You may still have all of these things. But for this moment, right, there's something. You are seen in this space, and there is space for you in this place. And that place is inclusive to meet you in that spot. And I think I think most of the time in modern religious spaces, we often think of some of these concepts, these theological concepts like hope and peace. And I think we think about them as things that should trump everything, right? So like, if I feel peace, then I shouldn't feel worry or anxiety or concern or, any of those co-occurring kind of emotions. But in all reality, I think there is something so beautiful about the fact that those things can exist simultaneously, right? Jesus was called the Prince of Peace. Throughout Scripture, his birth is heralded as, peace has come down, peace has come to earth. And yet at the same time, instantaneously, when Jesus arrived into Bethlehem, into this stable, born of a virgin, crying and screaming, all of the other problems of the world did not cease to exist. Peace infiltrated the chaos. Peace infiltrated injustice. Peace infiltrated all of those dynamics and existed in a space that co-occurred with all of those things. And so I think it's really dangerous for us in sacred spaces and from a place of religion to constantly talk about things in such a way that if you believe, right, or if you do this holy checklist, you are going to feel peace that is going to like fix everything. Because then I think a lot of times what happens is when people say like, I went to that women's event, or I went to that men's breakfast, or I went to that thing and I felt so much peace, but then I came home, and it starts this cycle of like, why do I keep losing it? Why do I keep losing my peace? Am I losing my faith? And I think, again, in these religious spaces, a lot of times that narrative is maybe we're not doing the checklist correctly. When at the same time, like the song that you led us in reminds us, like, where have we seen God show up? Where are we looking for God to show up? I think it's oftentimes an expectation issue, because if we expect to feel completely calm and centered and never dysregulated ever, that's not a reasonable expectation. Because I think if we've withdrawn from the world so much that we don't put ourselves into places of chaos, into places of hurt, into places of trauma, then we've actually missed the entire point of the gospel, right? Jesus didn't come so that we could build ourselves a place that is peaceful and protected from all of the craziness of the world. Jesus came to usher peace into the chaos and to say, I see you. I'm here with you. I will suffer in this space with you. I will give you strength to get up one more day. I will meet you in this space with wisdom and direction and food for this day and put people in your path today. Like I see you. And there's something that I think we often miss when it comes to the concept of peace of Christmas, because I think we're often looking for the Hallmark ending.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for everything to be beautiful and okay and never a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
When in all reality, peace is what floods into all of those spaces. Mm-hmm. So we've been in the book of Psalms all year. And I told you last week I was challenging myself to try to stay in Psalms as we go through Advent. And as I was reading through several different Psalms this week and just like kind of meditating on peace, I came across this Psalm that most definitely was not written about or before the birth of Jesus, but well, it was written before the birth of Jesus, but it wasn't like specifically naming that. But yet when I read this Psalm, that's what I think of. I think of the night that Jesus was born, just in this description and in this language, especially in this concept of peace. And so it's the latter half of Psalms 85. And here's what it says. It says this: I listen carefully to what the Lord God is saying, for he speaks peace to his faithful people. But let them not return to their foolish ways. Surely his salvation is near to those who fear him. So our land will be filled with his glory. Unfailing love and truth have met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed. Truth springs up from the earth, and righteousness smiles down from heaven. Yes, the Lord pours down his blessing. Our land will yield its bountiful harvest. Righteousness goes as a herald before him, preparing the way for his steps. Mm-hmm. That imagery that is in Psalms 85 that says unfailing love and truth have met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed. Truth springs up from the earth. There's something so beautiful about that. If we think about this verse in the context of Christmas, in the context of Advent, that all of those pieces, right? All of those pieces of prophecy, that the Prince of Peace, that God who is love incarnate would come down in this moment of truth, right? John says that he is the way, the truth, and the life. He is all of those things. And all of those things kind of came together in this manger, in this perfect kiss, as the psalmist describes it, and this perfect act of love to humanity that declares that peace is here. Peace has come. Peace has arrived. And peace walks with us still. And I think something so beautiful about that is really challenging. Mm-hmm. How does that hit you?
And I think portion of that piece is just simply that affirmation that we're not alone, like we're not in it alone, but the presence of Jesus, like, and when you compare to the Bible, like Jesus's birth was like, while it was very quiet at the time, was as described as like a wave of peace that kind of came over people. Like I think it was, you know, people were waiting for that, and they were waiting for that moment because they knew that that's what was coming in a way. And I feel like that just that presence piece of it is just something that's really, but really constant.
And I think, again, it goes to they were waiting because something was wrong. Something was dysregulated in the world, right? There was injustice. There was oppression. There were all of these things that we still experience today in different forms. And when Jesus came and was born, you're absolutely right. When people encountered and engaged with, it was like, ooh, there's something different here. Because peace, I think, is one of those things that when we are walking in a space of peace amidst all of the chaos, there's something noticeable about that. But it isn't an instantaneous change. Yet we, in our modern context, we treat it like, oh, everything should be perfect and wonderful now, right? Like we enter the Christmas season and it should just be chocolate and rainbows and butterflies and snowflakes and like all of the wonderful things. And understanding that peace can settle over us amidst financial struggles, amidst sickness, amidst relationship trauma and broken relationships and dysfunctional families, and all of those pieces can still exist and still feel peace. I'm excited about this song that you're going to lead us in because it's one I haven't heard in a while and it's a favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also goes right to what we're talking about here, because this idea that peace is kind of like a candle in the darkness. It is kind of this thing that says, I acknowledge that the darkness exists. And I may not be able to make it all go away at the moment, but I can provide some light and I can provide some warmth and I can provide this moment that reminds us that peace is here and peace isn't leaving us and peace is accessible even in the hardest of spaces. So I'm just going to invite you wherever you are to just listen and meditate on these lyrics as we think about the concept of peace.
The world waits for a miracle. The heart longs for a little bit of hope. Oh come, Emmanuel. A child prays for peace on earth, and she's calling out from a sea of hurt. Oh come, Emmanuel. Can you hear the angels singing? Glory to the light of the world. Glory, the light of the world is here. The drought breaks with the tears of a mother. A baby's cry is the sound of love. Come down, Emmanuel. He is the song for the suffering. He is Messiah, the Prince of Peace has come. He has come, Emmanuel. Glory to the light of the world. Glory to the light of the world. For all who wait, for all who hunger, for all who prayed, for all who wander. Behold your King, behold Messiah, Emmanuel, Emmanuel. Glory to the light of the world. Glory to the light of the world. Glory, the light of the world. Glory, the light of the world is here.
A few weeks ago, we talked about this challenge. It was Thanksgiving week. We talked about this challenge to be intentional about being grateful. And we talked about cultivating a practice of seeking out at least one thing every day that you can be thankful for. And I want to challenge you that it is those practices that I think produce peace. It is being intentional to meditate on where we see the activity of God, where we see the love of God, where we see the activity and the invitation to partner in what God's love is attempting to do in the world around us, I think the more that we slow ourselves as a discipline, the more that we remember to look for those things, the more that we give peace a place to be noted, to be celebrated, to be honored, to be felt, and to be welcomed into our lives. I think we have to realize that peace is participatory.
Mm.
And again, I go back to this. I think so often today, we treat faith, we treat hope, we treat peace, we treat joy like these are all just naturally occurring derivatives of believing in God, in recognizing God. But the lyrics of that song struck me so hard, Holly, because part of what that says is that Jesus is the king of the questioner, of the doubting, of the hungry, of the scared, of the lost. And all of those spaces are welcome around the manger. All of those spaces should be welcome in holy spaces. All of those questions, all of those doubts, all of our stories should be fully embraced and welcomed in places. And we should understand that we cannot use language that peace and hope and joy automatically well up, and that those are how we know that we've had an encounter with the divine, right? Like, I think it dismisses that questions also can be an encounter with the divine. Struggles can also be an encounter, but it's the willingness to persevere in that place and to realize that, like, I have to lean in and I have to be a participant in this process, that a relationship with God is not just one way and automatic, that it is a two-way. Let me lean in as well. Let me look for those places. Let me look for the activity around me that is holy. I think that's part of how we rekindle peace every single day, no matter what we're facing, no matter what life looks like this holiday, no matter if it is much less hallmarky than you would like it to be. That doesn't diminish the holiness of it, and it doesn't diminish the capacity for peace when you are willing to practice the principles that I think lead to peace. Any other thoughts from you?
I think my last thought would just be like that permission that it's okay if you don't know what peace really feels like. I think it's okay to walk away from the hallmark feelings. I think it's okay to walk away from the very church religious like definitions of things, and to just be in a space to say, like, I know I want that. I want to understand that. I want to know that, but like, I don't know if I know exactly what that feels like. That's part of a place of deconstructing both culturally and religiously. I think that's okay. And sometimes we need permission to say, like, that's okay.
Yeah, I think some of these concepts, especially at Advent, are hard, and they're messy concepts, especially when you're in a season of trying to rebuild a faith. And culturally, we use this phrase deconstruction a lot, but it's not just deconstructing, it's reconstructing a faith that says, how do I take what I've known and how do I be willing to ask questions of it, but also put it back together in a way that maybe reflects more accurately some of these concepts that are really big and really hard. So, friends, I think for me, I'm just going to name some places where I think I have seen holy activity this week, and some places of peace. And I'm going to challenge you to name some as well as we close. And if you're online and you want to pop into the comments, I would love to read those. This is what I miss about live service is we do service so different anyway. It's so much more collaborative and more of like a conversation at TCG. And so it's hard sometimes to just feel like we're talking to you. So feel free to jump into the comments and share with us a place that you've seen God move in this last week, and how has that brought peace amidst the chaos for you? I would love to hear some of those. For me, a couple of them. street outreach is always a place where I think I experience a lot of peace, because there's something really beautiful about and I guess for me, there's also something just really symbolic about, I feel like when we are driving around and we're like looking and kind of like straining your eyes in the darkness for any sign of somebody, it reminds me a lot of how I think that God, looks for us sometimes in our darkest seasons, just kind of trying to look for those signs of people that are in need of love and just a moment of being touched and reminded that you're seen and you're heard. And so there was a moment this week on street outreach where we pulled up, and there was an individual who was very, very, very new to the streets and very, very scared. It was a night that the wind was really miserable. They were really miserable, but just to be able to pull up and say, hey, do you want some socks? Do you want some gloves? Like, I can't fix this situation for you. I wish that I could. And we talked for a little bit and answered some questions and tried to give resources. Like, I couldn't change the storm, right? I couldn't remove the season. But in that moment, there was laughter, right? There were genuine smiles. There were these moments of exchanges where I feel like there was just this like settling, like you said before, you don't always know what peace feels like, right? Like, it doesn't feel warm and fuzzy to get back in the van and drive away. Like, let me just make that clear. But at the same time, there's like this moment of like, okay, like I feel like they had the supplies and the knowledge and some direction on where to be and where to go, to get through this night, to start tomorrow, to get pointed in the right direction, to know how to reconnect, to how to communicate. And that felt like a small degree of peace, even though that situation played out time after time after time after time that night. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes when I look at the systematic pieces of how much that need is, sometimes it can feel like it robs me of my peace. And so when those moments are there, I have to shift from the macro to the micro and remind myself in these individual situations to feel that and to lean into that experience for a second, because that is what reminds me to keep going, even when I feel like it's really heavy.
Yeah.
And it's a lot.
I have two I'll share briefly. I think on a church shelters perspective, there's a really beautiful moment this week in a time of a lot of chaos. There was a lot of high emotions, just a lot of crisis. I walked into our shelter space after having a hard conversation on the phone, and I came in just feeling a lot of overwhelm, and just for the families that were in that space that night. And I walked in, and one of our cute kiddos that had been staying with us, they've now had a new place that they've been able to relocate to, just came up and gave me the biggest hug. And just that peace of knowing you're someone safe for one of those kiddos is just this indescribable feeling. Like, that moment of like, I can't fix all the problems, but in this moment, that was enough. Like, and just the energy that like she gave off in that moment, it was very sweet, very beautiful. And sometimes those moments when we don't feel like we're doing enough, and you get that glimmer, like you said, that micro glimmer of like, but this matters. I think in a personal level, like super authentic, transparent. There was a moment of overwhelm at my household today of just, we fall in a category of like finances are a struggle. And I think there's a lot of temptation this season to like give into some of that, like the capitalism and all that stuff and all the things to do and the stuff to do, and just the overwhelm of a very hard season for us personally. And my 5-year-old was just like, we were talking about Christmas stuff, and she was like, Christmas is watching Christmas movies and having a dance party and baking cookies together and going and looking at Christmas lights, and like everything she named on her list was like timed together, and it had nothing to do with money. It had nothing to do with those things. And it was just a really sweet, beautiful moment that just the purity of her eyes was the magic of this season. It was the safety of having family, and was just a huge reminder of just how to say that as an encouragement to others, like there can be so much peace in just the simple moments that will actually be the greater memories later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I challenge you this week. No matter what you face, no matter what circumstances look like or what this season holds for you right now, I want to challenge you to look for some places that you can take note of peace, that you can lean into peace, and that you can be grateful for glimmers of peace amidst whatever chaos may surround you. So, our top 3 for this week, our hard pivot into announcements. One of them is that we have a lot of amazing people that have brought donations and all kinds of wonderful blessings to the Outreach Center, and we could not be more grateful. We have so many needs right now for warm clothes and coats and socks and tennis shoes, and we've been putting out massive code reds because some of these items are dangerously low. Like, we are currently and have been out of any kind of small men's pants for weeks now, and that's heartbreaking to not be able to meet those needs when we need to. And so I'm so grateful to be in a community when we put a call out that people just answer with boxes and bags and trunkfuls of donations. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. But with that comes the need to make sure that we can get those donations sorted and accessible as quickly as possible so that we can get them out at our outreach center, get them out on street outreach, get them out into the different clothing banks that we stock around the city. And so we're having a little bit of a hard time keeping up with that need. And so we're going to do a special work day with our team this week. So this coming Friday, we're going to spend the vast majority of the day at the outreach center, it sounds like. So from about 9 to 2. If you are available and would like to come out and help, we would love to have you. So you are welcome to connect just through our Facebook page. If you want to send a message and say, hey, I can help, just let me know if I need to do anything or be there or whatever. That would be incredibly amazing. And we would be so very grateful. The other thing that kind of goes with that is we are currently doing Christmas in 2 different capacities right now. So our 2 big Christmas projects that we're doing this year, one is we are trying to collect 750 pairs of thermal long underwear to give out as kind of a layer of warmth this winter, especially as we get into the January, February part of the winter when things get really, really cold. And so our goal is to be able to give out at least 1 pair to every single person that is hyper vulnerable on the streets, sleeping in their cars, so that we can give those out at the outreach center, at street outreach, and at our crisis cold weather shelters. So we've got several faith communities that are partnering with us to do collections, which we're so grateful for. As of Friday, we had 89 pairs that have been collected and sorted and sized and all of those good things. And so we still have a long way to go to meet this goal. So if you want to get involved and want to be a part of that, we would be so very grateful. You can pick up, I know we have heard from several people that Costco has an amazing deal if you have a Costco membership. And so I've heard from several people who've ordered and stocked up from there. But there's other great places in town as well, or you can order on our Amazon wish list. And then the other big thing that we're doing for Christmas is for our family shelter, families that we work with through Family Connection. We are collecting Walmart gift cards of $50. So if you are interested in helping to do that, we would love to collect 50 gift cards at $50. So that way we can distribute those to parents who can do some shopping for their kiddos and just help to make that day a little bit extra special. So you can drop those gift cards off at the Outreach Center, or you can mail them to the church, which is just 4341 West Chestnut. Springfield 65802. So those are my big announcements. Do you have anything you want to add?
I don't think so. I think our biggest need for family shelter is people who like to hang out overnight. We definitely could use some volunteers who are willing to help out with the overnight shift. We have 2 people scheduled, so it's half a night that you're up and alert just in case there's a need. And that's pretty much any night, because I know we're all rotating right now, and we've had several nights where we've had to call in some backup because of illness that's been going around and things like that. So if you have any desire to hang out with a bunch of families overnight, let me know. I'd be more than happy to get you right on the schedule.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, everybody. Well, Merry Christmas. We hope that you are enjoying this season in whatever capacity that looks like. If there's anything that you need or anything that we can do for you, please feel free to reach out. And we'll be back next week with our 3rd week of Advent. Bye, everybody.